Life Readiness. Put up your hand if you're ready for the next life. Anybody ready for the next life? I'm ready. Okay, there you go. All right. Thy kingdom come. Get it, let's get. Do we really have to go through 3.5 years of tribulation? Yes, we do. All right. So, next life readiness is what we're going to talk about now. And Jesus wants true believers to always be ready or be in a state of readiness. Right? And I talked to a fireman. I see him every year at the feast. And I asked him, I said, how long does it take you from the time you hear the alarm bell ring till the time you're on the truck downstairs? He said, 2 minutes. Two minutes. I can't do anything in 2 minutes. I can't boil water in 2 minutes. It's like, but they all got trained to be ready. And they're floating around upstairs in the firehouse, and they're in their skivvies or they're in their shorts or whatever they're doing, and they're playing gin rummy or whatever. When that bell rings, 2 minutes later, they're dressed and sliding down the pole and jumping on the truck, and away goes the truck. 2 minutes. So Jesus wants true believers always ready or in readiness to enter the next life. Right? Now, we teach, and the scriptures show, that Jesus comes back. He descends on the white horses, and as he's descending, he's sending his angels out to bring his saints up to meet him in the clouds and be changed and become spirit being. Right? Now, a lot of those will be dead people, will come out of the graves. Right? And some of them will be living people. Some of us may be living people at the time. Right? But those who died, like Chester, right? I can almost picture Chester's last day and his last hour. The way I heard it was, he'd gotten home from work, right? And he was lying on the floor near the air conditioner, right? So he didn't know that morning that was his last day. He didn't know, all right? He just figured, I'm tired, I'm going to go turn the air conditioner up or down or whatever, and that was his last moment of consciousness, and he died ready to meet Jesus, right? He hasn't met Jesus yet. He's still in the grave. He's waiting for the first resurrection, right? So 3 days before Jesus died, he gave 2 of the greatest chapters in the Bible. In those 2 chapters, Jesus outlines what believers must be doing, what they must be doing to be ready at all times. You need to be ready like every day. The fire people are ready every 2 or 3 minutes. It's like, I don't know what you would do if you're going to the restroom or something. It's like, I don't, anyhow. But anyhow, that's a fireman problem. All right, but anyhow, the truck is leaving in 2 to 3 minutes, and if you're going to that fire, you need to be on the truck, sort of thing. Okay, so in those 2 chapters, Jesus outlines what believers must be doing to be ready for eternal life. Matthew 26:1. When Jesus finished all these sayings, he said to his disciples, after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be crucified. I'm going to be dead. So when he gave when he spoke chapters 24 and 25 of Matthew, he knew that he was going to be dead within 3 days period of time. So this was an important message for him to get across to people, right? It's like, and they came to him and they said, when are things going to happen? So Jesus knew he would be dead in 3 days, so he uses these 2 chapters to urge millions of followers, his followers, to be ready on a daily basis. And I believe that's why he said the model prayer is, give us this day our daily bread. And all of us like to eat something every day, except on the Day of Atonement and occasionally other times, right? But we do like eating, right? Eating is kind of one of those fun things we do, right? The disciples wanted to know, when will Jesus bring the kingdom to planet Earth? Matthew 24:3. The disciples came to him privately and they said, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign, which can mean indicator? What is the indicator of, of your coming? Well, if you can still picture that board up here with the white horses on it, that's a huge sign indicator of his coming. And wherever you are, if you're alive in the years ahead, and the tribulation has been 3.5 years now, and it's going to be dark. There'll be no sunshine. It says the sun will be darkened. So something will happen, and you go out the door and you look up into the dark sky, and that's what you're going to be seeing. White, shiny, bright. The whole horizon will be lit up by 10 or 20 angels. I don't think so. Like millions of angels on horses, with Jesus leading them on the big white horse in the front. Right? So he says, tell us what are the signs, the indicators of your coming, and what is the end of the age, the human age, or what will it be like just before you return to planet Earth? Right? Because in their minds, they were figuring it'd be a week or two, maybe a month or two. Paul wrote, he thought that Christ would come back in his lifetime, and it's been like 1900 years since then. So in verse 14, Jesus gives the when answer very early in chapter 24, verse 14. This gospel must be preached into all the world as a witness to all nations, and once it has been preached as a witness into all nations, then the end will come. Verse 14, that's the answer. Oh, but he didn't stop there. He went on. And we could ask, how will the gospel be preached into all the world? Revelation has the answer. Revelation 11:3. I will give my 2 witnesses power, and they will prophesy, which means inspired speaking, and they'll be preaching this gospel into all the world for 1,260 days in sackcloth. Right? So, when you see these 2 individuals on global TV, you are going to know that's Revelation chapter 11. That's what that is, right? After they preach for 3.5 years, God allows Satan to kill the 2 witnesses. Then their bodies are left lying in the streets for 3.5 days. Revelation 11:11. Now after 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered in them, and they stood on their feet. I wish somebody would make a movie about this. This is good stuff, right? Where's Cecil B. DeMille or Spielberg? Where are these movie makers when you need them? This is great stuff, right? The 2 witnesses everybody hates them. And when they're dead, they, just like Mussolini, apparently in World War II, they hung Mussolini from something, and they just left his dead body hanging in the breeze for days and days and days because they hated him so much, whatever. And the 2 witnesses are going to be hated so much, they leave their dead bodies lying in the streets, and they're going to give gifts, and they're going to make merry, and they're going to rejoice because 2 witnesses, those nasty people, are dead, right? And 3.5 days after they're lying there in the street dead, then the voice from God says, right, verse 12, they heard a loud voice from heaven saying, come up here. Now, do you suppose that the cameraman who's filming this, right, this is good stuff. The young 20, 25-year-old cameraman and the guy with the microphone, they're going to be reporting. Yes, it's been 2.5 days now, and these nasty 2 witnesses have been lying in the streets. Oh, and now it's the 3rd day. Now we're halfway through the 3rd day, and they're still lying there, and the flies are on their bodies. And, oh, wait, I just heard a voice. A voice said, come up here. What does that mean? And then they sit up. They start breathing, and they sit up, and they say, hey, you feeling okay? Yeah, that wasn't too bad. And they stand up on their feet, and the guy with the camera and the guy with the microphone, it's like the Hindenburg. Have any of you heard the description of the Hindenburg? You can look it up on YouTube. But anyhow, there's a guy watching the Hindenburg burst into flame, and he goes berserk, trying to explain what's happening. Anyhow, so it's going to be an unbelievable event, and that's the return of Christ. They go up into the clouds. The dead saints all around the world go up into the clouds. The living saints go up into the clouds. Jesus has the big meeting, and they all go over to the Mount of Olives. He put his feet on the Mount of Olives, right? So Matthew 24:25 have 97 verses. There are almost 100 verses in chapters 24 and 25, right? Verse 14 of chapter 24, he gave them the answer they wanted. When are you coming? This gospel will be preached in all the world, and then will the end come. The two witnesses finish their preaching, and then you have to wait 3.5 days while their bodies lie in the streets to fulfill that prophecy, and then there's the end, because Jesus comes then, right? So he wanted to focus. He goes on and on and on to the remainder, almost 100 verses after verse 14, because he wants his readers to be fully aware of 4 vital ways of being ready every single day. Right? It's not something, if you're going camping in the summertime, or if you're going elk hunting, I'm having trouble saying that. If you're going elk hunting in the winter, right, you make plans, you make preparations, and then you get ready over a period of time. Jesus wants us ready every night before we go to bed, and after we get up in the morning and have had our cup of coffee and gotten started, then he wants us ready again. He wants us ready to meet him, because none of us know the day or the hour that we're going to die and be unconscious and dead and suddenly resurrected and then meet him happy face. And we need to be ready, or we don't meet him in the first resurrection. So, over his overall message is in Luke 21:36. Watch therefore and pray always, every day, that you might be counted worthy to escape all these things that come to pass, and to stand before the Son of Man at the first resurrection. That's not in the text, right? But that's the meaning. Be working and prepared and be readying yourself to stand before Jesus Christ, to meet him face to face at the first resurrection, because that's the big one, right? Now, the first of the 4 readiness guidelines, Matthew 24:45. He says, who then is a faithful and wise servant who his master made to nourish God's household? The language there is a little difficult to follow, but essentially, look at the Greek. It has made master or leader over to nourish the household of God. That's what we do in church. We nourish each other, we encourage each other, we care for each other, we pray for each other, right? Blessed is that servant whom his master, when he appears, will find so doing. What do you mean so doing? It means being a faithful and wise servant day in, day out, day in, day out. And if you're surprised and you end up dead tomorrow, right, which I'm driving to Galveston. There are going to be a lot of hot drivers down there. So I could be dead today. But, you just got to be ready as every day comes to you. Be as ready as you can be. The second readiness guideline in Matthew 25:1, the kingdom of heaven will be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom to provide light for the wedding. Right? And if you had a wedding in here, you wouldn't need 10 virgins with lamps. You just turn the light switch on. Boom! You've got light for the wedding. Back in those days, they used lamps, right? So, verse 2, the 5 of them that were wise, the 5 wise virgins, right? And 5 of them were foolish. And why was that? Because those who were foolish took their lamps. The lamp, how many of you have seen a lamp the way they used to have them 2,000 years ago? They're about this big. They sort of fit in your hand. You've got a little spout, like a little teacup. You put oil in here, and you light the spout, and the flame burns from the oil that's in the container up out of the spout, and now you've got it like a candle to go, right? Anyhow, candles work better, but they hadn't invented candles then, so they went with these lamps, right? So they took their lamps, and they took no extra oil with them. So they figured, there's enough oil in my little lamp. That'll do. That'll be enough. It'll be okay. Don't worry. Don't sweat it. Right? But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. So they had their lamp full of oil, and they took another vessel along with them which had extra oil in it. So they were prepared in case it went longer, so they would not fail at their mission of providing light for the wedding. So daily readiness means be prepared to go the extra mile. Right? Now, as servants of Jesus Christ, no matter what happens to us, we got to have the attitude of, this is tough, I don't like this, I hate this. Lady I know is in a nursing home, she doesn't like that. In her mind, she's in prison, right? But you've got to tough it out, and whatever circumstances you're in, you've got to be ready to go the extra mile. The third readiness guideline is in Matthew 25:21. His Lord said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over," it took me quite a while to see that word there, few. You were faithful over a few things. Not, you were faithful in lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of things. You were faithful in a few things, right? Which really should be very encouraging, because if you're faithful in a few things, this is you, right? I will make you ruler over many things. Enter the joy of your Lord. Now, the opposite of this, and he gives it in the text, we don't have time to cover every single part of it, but the opposite is not being ready as God prescribed. Verse 25, the guy said, "I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, here's your talent. I'll just blow off the dust, scrape off some dirt, and I'll hand you back your talent, and now you got what you gave me, I'm giving it back to you." But there was no fruit, there was no increase. And here's what the Lord said. This is how the Lord looks at it, verse 26. The Lord answered and said, "You wicked and slothful, lazy servant. I gave you the talent. I gave you the mission. Go increase this amount of money. And then when I come back, I get my amount of money and I get the increase." Right? And you didn't do it. You knew what you were supposed to and you didn't do it. Verse 27, "So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back, that which was my own with interest." Now, Jesus is extremely merciful. I would not have said that, because I'm not Messiah and I'm not Christ, and I wasn't writing the Bible, right? But if you took an amount of money and you stuck it in the bank, and you got a little bit of interest, right, year after year after year, and the boss comes back and you give him the talent plus a little bit of interest, apparently he'd be happy. Wow! Reminds me of the some bear fruit 30-fold, some 60-fold, and some 100-fold. Well, 100, say 100's up here. 60's like half of that. And 30's half of 60. 30's like way down there. It's like, but Jesus is happy with 30-fold. He's happy with 60-fold. He's happy with 100-fold. He's just happy that you bore some fruit. In this case, he said, if you'd have just gotten interest from the bankers, I'd have been happy, right? But you didn't. You were a wicked and slothful servant, right? So the fourth readiness guideline is in Matthew 25:32. "All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides the sheep from the goats." 34, verse 34. "And then the king will say to those on his right hand, the sheep, 'Come, you blessed sheep of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. 'Cause,' verse 35, 'I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me.'" And the rest of the text, I don't have it in the handout, says, the righteous say, "Oh, but Lord, we don't remember doing that. How come?" And he said to them, "In the fact that you were doing that to human beings around you, you were in fact spiritually doing it to me. And go into the kingdom because you did good." Right? Okay, then the opposite is in verse 40. And the king says, "Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did it to one of these, the least of it, you did it unto me." Then he talks to the goats, right? Here comes the goats. Next, his answer to the goats who did not keep themselves in a readiness state. And how do you keep yourself ready in the readiness state? You keep doing the prescription, the things God says he wants you to do day after day after day after day. Never getting weary. We do get weary, but don't get weary in well-doing. Go to bed, get a good night's rest, get up in the morning, have your coffee, and then get back to helping people. Don't get weary in well-doing. Verse 45, "Then he will answer to the goats, saying, Assuredly I say to you, inasmuch as you did not do it to one of these, the least of my brethren, you were not doing it to me." You weren't helping, serving, feeding, visiting people in prison, visiting the sick. You weren't doing it to other people, therefore you weren't doing it to me, therefore you're a goat. Right? Verse 46, right? "These will go away into everlasting punishment." Please note, the text says punishment, It doesn't say punishing. And if you read this verse too quick, you can presume that you get punished forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It says punishment, not punishing. The punishment is you die the second time and you stay dead forever. That's the punishment, right? So it's not burning in hellfire. So, in summary, keeping oneself in a state of readiness to meet Jesus is, summarizing, 1, being faithful and wise servants serving God's family on earth. 2, being careful to have extra oil so we can go the extra mile. 3, working for Jesus and increasing our fruit output. He's looking for increase. He doesn't want the same thing back that you had last year. He wants increase. Number 4, serving human beings as if they are Jesus. You meet somebody, you treat them like you would treat Jesus, right? I don't know how you treat Jesus. I'd probably fall on my face, you know. But anyhow, it's like treat people like you would treat Jesus. Nobody knows the day or the hour they will meet Jesus, i.e. the day they will die, right? So, you know, Chester met Jesus, in a sense, on a day he didn't know he was going to die, and then wake up, you know, not knowing how many years have gone by, and meet Jesus. So essentially your last breath is the second before the next second of consciousness when you meet Jesus. So need to be ready at all times. Jesus wants us ready to meet him today and tomorrow and every day ahead of us until that day when we actually meet him